The Denver Nuggets are coming off their first NBA championship ever, and they look like the best team in the NBA by far last season, and especially during the NBA playoffs. But now the question is, can they defend their NBA championship? They still have Nikola Jokic, who's only 28, Jamal Murray, who's only 26, and Aaron Gordon, who's only about to be 28, all in the prime of their careers. Though they did lose Bruce Brown Jr. to the Indiana Pacers, a guy who did pretty much everything for them both off the bench and in their starting lineup at times too. And no matter what way you want to look at it, that's a pretty big loss for them.
Yeah, I think that going into this free agency, the Nuggets had a potential pretty big hole to fill even before you consider what the other teams in the NBA are doing this summer. And we're talking about a guy that averaged almost 12 points per game, 4.1 rebounds, and 3.4 assists last year, and was a major component to the championship run. And another big notable hole to fill was Jeff Green, which, sure, he was getting up there in age, but he put on a great playoff performance in my opinion, and is still a great veteran to mix in with younger players. Like I said, these are a few holes that are going to need to be addressed even before you consider the moves other teams have made. If you look at major changes and additions that Memphis, Phoenix, Golden State, and even the Lakers have made, the Nuggets really haven't made anything too big, and they were almost forced to take a gamble on the major development or even leaps in players like Christian Braun and Peyton Watson, which I think is totally reasonable.
Yeah, it will definitely be a big gamble for them to take that risk with their young guys like Christian Braun, Peyton Watson. But I'm pretty confident in them. They showed some good promise during their rookie years, with that being especially true for Christian Braun. But getting back to how you mentioned they didn't really replace Jeff Green or Bruce Brown Jr., the only guy they brought in during free agency was Justin Holiday pretty much, and that really doesn't do anything to address that hole that Bruce Brown Jr. will leave in their rotation. They did make some draft day trades to acquire small forward Julian Strother, point guard Jalen Pickett, and combo forward Hunter Tyson. And like you said, they're likely hoping for a combination of them to replicate what Christian Braun did last season, with that providing some unexpected production with them being rookies, but 10-15 minutes per game here and there filling in within their rotation, and hopefully one or two of them can kind of exceed expectations and really be rotational pieces for them. But getting back to Christian Braun, I think that he'll be the one to truly quote-unquote replace Bruce Brown for them off the bench, and he'll kind of need to be too. Again, they didn't truly replace him, so Christian Braun's gonna have to fill that role, and he did show some really good 3-and-D promise throughout the year, both in the regular season and during the playoffs. He didn't put up huge numbers, only 4.7 points per game during the regular season, but he did gain the trust of head coach Mike Malone. And if you know Mike Malone, that's a pretty rare feat for a rookie. He played in every single playoff game for them, and he never shied away from the moment or whoever he had to defend. And Mike Malone trusting a rookie like that says a lot about Christian Braun, and I don't know how you could be any more confident with him after watching that.
Before we continue, I just wanted to take a few seconds to talk about and invite you to join our NBA Discord server. Our JSM NBA server is full of hundreds of people who love everything NBA. Do you like instant news updates around the league, NBA memes, talking stats, or even live chatting with others during games? The JSM NBA server has got you covered, plus so many more things to do and see. Come check out the JSM NBA server for free. We'd love to see you in there. The link will be in the description below. Now let's get back to the video. No, I agree. To your point, he was great in Kansas. He was great his rookie year last season. I think it definitely helps, obviously, having the playmaker on your team such as Jokic. But just when you're up in the playoffs too, there's not a whole lot of pressure. I think you can come in, you can kind of go at your own pace. You have a lot of support from not only the staff but the other veteran players on the team that have been in similar situations. And I think he's got a great build. Like you said, he's made great strides even to just improve overall, but I think that this next season the Nuggets are going to need that leap from him, and really need it. It's not going to be they're going to be contenders, or they're going to be championships if you're not. They're going to need it, especially just looking at the rest of their depth out of Christian Braun, and I think that he's the player to do it.
We're not talking about a huge 30+ minute per game kind of role here, but everyone knows how much Bruce Brown Jr. meant to their team, and if they can't at least fill a large majority of that void, it'll be difficult for them to repeat as champions. We often don't think of a role player as meaning that much to a team, but you see it happen every year. A team, they can't either pay their role player to keep them around, or for whatever reason, it just doesn't work out, and their team slowly falls apart after that. Not saying that'll happen with Denver, but it will be difficult to replace that void left by Bruce Brown Jr. But between Christian Watson, Peyton Watson, Julian Strother, I'm fairly confident that they'll be able to do that. And then even besides that, they have some pretty solid depth yet. They have one of the best starting lineups in the NBA, and even apart from Jokic, Gordon, and Murray, they got Caldwell Pope, Michael Porter Jr., two great role players, two of the best in the entire league, honestly. And I mean, between that core five and the depth they have around them, I mean, they're a very solid team yet.
Right, and it's just hard because when you look at all the changes and the additions that all the teams have made around the NBA this summer, you think that as a championship team in Denver that everyone's trying to compete with them, right? So what's Denver trying to do to compete with everyone else? And you look at it on the front page value, it's like, oh, well, they really haven't done anything. They've actually gone backwards, especially losing Bruce Brown Jr. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think a lot of people think that is the case. Sure, we're not going to see a major leap from Jokic and Murray like we have in the past, but that coaching staff, they know how to win, and they're going to keep improving those young guys. And a major thing I think that will probably take place is probably some mid-season shopping from the Nuggets. And obviously it's way too early to even tell or guess that, but I would venture to guess that that's probably what's going to happen. Is they're going to be looking for some sort of trade, some sort of pickups, come trade deadline and stuff like that, and just to kind of increase their odds and just to see how other teams are meshing together too.
Yeah, I like that you bring that up. They have some tradable contracts. They $5 million contract of Reggie Jackson, the $4 million contract of Zeke Naji, then some minimum contracts to throw in here and there as well. Yeah, they could make some moves. I mean, they didn't have any reason to panic and make a big move during the offseason here, and they can address that throughout the middle of the year at the trade deadline, wherever it might be, buyout market potentially, if they need to. And you just never know. You can't panic when you're the reigning NBA champions. I mean, barring Jokic, Murray, or Michael Porter Jr., one of them getting hurt, and you can't plan for that, they pretty much just have to ride it out here. I mean, they're going to be good regardless. If there's a different team posing a real threat to them, say maybe Phoenix, they're even better than we expect, and they feel like they need to add a player to kind of combat that, then yeah, they can do that through a trade or whatever it might be. But with the way they're built right now, I don't see any real reason for them to make a big move or that they should feel pressured either. I like what they're doing, and I feel like they're in a very good position right now.
Right, no, I agree 100%. There's no reason to panic. There's no reason to even think like that. You just kind of see it around in the NBA space that, they're not doing anything, but all these teams are building to compete with them, and that's how it exactly should be. And I think that, yeah, they're in a really good spot. They're in a really good place to develop some younger guys and kind of roll them into, which is kind of a high ask if you think for, a second year player. It's kind of a high ask, but that's what can make a really good player. And I just think that for the Denver Nuggets moving forward, the only concern that I have is probably just the depth and the bench play and just seeing how that comes in, because we talked enough about the core. Obviously those guys are phenomenal players. They're going to be competing with the best, but obviously we'll see how that depth plays in role, especially if, God forbid, there's some injuries that maybe start rolling out, just seeing how they can kind of keep moving forward. And overall, I think the Nuggets are in a great position, and yeah, they'll be up in the West again, I think.
For sure. I would say their number one threat, even if you bring in other teams here, would probably be health. I mean, about Murray, he dealt with the knee injuries. Michael Porter Jr. has a very long list of injuries. Even Aaron Gordon has some here and there as well. I think that's their only real threat to, them being at the top of the West again. And, like you said, God forbid, hopefully none of that happens, but that would probably be the only big outside adaptation they would have to make in terms of changing their team according to that. But barring any of that happening, I think they're on a great path to not only be at the top of the West again, being a top 3 seed, and I think they will be, given that they're a pretty young team yet. They got enough depth to where they don't have to overwork their top end talent. But 28-year-old Nikola Jokic, 26-year-old Murray, 8-year-old Aaron Gordon, they're all workhorses yet. They can play 35 plus minutes per game yet, and it won't be an issue. I think they'll win enough games to be a top 3 seed easy, and given that they stay healthy, I think they're a very, very good bet to make it back to the NBA Finals.